Hi, good to see you. A wealthy man's expensive rug was tossed into the trash can by a widow with 2 children. Unrolling the carpet was her immediate priority, so she grabbed it up. She felt a chill run down her spine the moment she opened it. The day descended into the trash can as a woman rummaged for food to bring home. Camila Reyes, her children needed to feed Luz, and she was desperately searching for a way to do it. While Marina and Joaquín played nearby, they were too naive to understand their mother's anguish over her inability to distribute even a basic meal to them. A widow at the tender age of 10, Camila's life had become a never-ending series of hardships with the deaths of her husband, mother, daughter Luz, and a string of complaints about being hungry. Littlest one delicately pulling at her mom's skirt, Camila gave her a sorrowful look and promised that they would find food shortly. Camila felt something pleasantly soft under her fingertips as she dug deeper into a heap of trash. Nonetheless, she remained uncertain about its authenticity. She retrieved the item and saw a plush rug that looked completely out of place there. The potential monetary value of the item sent her heart racing, but what she discovered next took her breath away. As she reflexively looked around, she mumbled to herself, "This is a lot of money." The weight of the decision on what to do with the discovery was like a stone on her shoulders. "Mom." Inside the rug, she found a thick envelope filled with banknotes. "Could you tell me what occurred?" Joaquín went up to the inquisitive. Camila swiftly concealed the parcel upon noticing her mother's concerned face. "Nothing, my love. Just an old rug," she avowed, her voice unsteady. "We should bring it home." As she got ready to exit the trash can, it might come in handy. From a distance, Camila could make out the figure of someone watching them. It was difficult to make out much detail in the silhouette because the darkness was starting to fall. Her pulse raced with a mixture of terror and the excitement of discovery at the sight of the spectator. "Who is that individual, Mom?" With a mix of terror and a hushed voice, Luz said, "Who's looking at us?" Camila strengthened the grip she had on her daughter's hand. She quickly stated, "I don't know, my darling, but let's go home now," as she hurriedly accompanied the youngsters to El Paso. "We should tell someone about what we found." On the carpet, Joaquín asked a question while his mother tried to read his emotions with her steady gaze. In response, Camila said, "Let's decide that at home," as she continued to process the revelation and all its possible consequences. "We need to keep this between us." We hastily made our exit, our footsteps blending with theirs and the hushed whispers of the nightfall. With a final glance behind her, Camila no longer felt the unease caused by the figure's immobility. Instead, she was driven forward by her determination to safeguard her children and find a way out of her financial predicament, thanks to the envelope containing a substantial sum of money. Camila carefully fastened the entrance to her humble cottage, overcome with a sense of the little dwelling, with its weathered wooden walls and flimsy roof, appeared even more exposed that night as Joaquín observed his mother with melancholy expressions, recalling the hunger they had discussed earlier and contemplating their next move. To appease her children's ravenous appetites, Camila made a quick and easy dinner out of some vegetables she had saved earlier. She was nevertheless anxious despite the weight of her findings. She knew she had guidance and support, but since she couldn't use the phone at home, she had to approach her mother in person. "Mom, we're going to be okay?" Luz asked innocently as she nibbled on her dinner. Camila smiled at Luz, hiding her worry in her smile. "Come on, darling, we just need to be cautious," she responded. She assured her children that she would return soon while firmly wrapping the letter in an old cloth, her worry palpable. In order to reach the little local police station, Camila trudged through the dimly illuminated streets of the area, where she was confident she could meet a trustworthy individual. As was his habit, she discovered Officer Diego Sanchez on patrol near the station when she got there. Diego was a long-lost friend who kept an eye on the area and was always happy to see people. "I need your help, Diego," Camila remarked as she walked up to him. "With the envelope concealed, I discovered this now, and I'm worried it might lead to complications." As he led her inside the station for a more private conversation, Diego gazed intently at the package and remarked, "Let's see what you found." Camila. As Diego was looking at the cash, he described what had happened. "Bringing this here was the correct move." "Hello, Camila. It appears that this sum is excessively high," and likely involves illicit activities. I will make a note of this, and we will look into its origin using the bill numbers as a guide. As Diego started to type up a report, he said that he was entrusted with the money. For a brief second, Camila was relieved. Upon reaching his house, he made a solemn vow to remain silent until further details were uncovered. Camila, as the aunt hurried past her humble porch, her heart raced with uncertainty over her decision. Suddenly, her eyes fell upon a worn table and a small envelope. Intrigued, Camila picked it up and read the message inside. "No go where they don't call you, forget the money." The chills went down her spine as she searched her surroundings, but she couldn't find anyone holding the note. Realizing the situation was more perilous than she had anticipated, Camila shut the door to the house. She embraced her children, who were playing music, and made promises to her. As she walked by, they muttered to one another, adding to Camila's sense of isolation. Rumors about what occurred were likely circulating, and someone had to have seen her call the police. "Mom, people are acting for what reason?" As Camila made a modesto meal with the proceeds from selling items she had rescued from the garbage, Joaquín posed an unusual question one morning as he peered out the kitchen window. Camila gave the question some serious thought. Sometimes, when people aren't sure how to explain something they love, they get anxious or scared before they answer their child. Something occurred, but they can't put their finger on what it was. As he listened to the discussion, his large, concerned eyes landed on his mother. "They believe our actions were incorrect." Camila tried to conceal her growing concern as she reassured her darling that they hadn't done anything wrong by straightening her light hair. Being watched did not lessen the act. As it slid slowly down the street, Camila caught sight of a mysterious black vehicle. The first time it went by her dirt street, she dismissed it as a mere coincidence. However, the second time, her heart started racing. On the third occasion, the automobile stopped short in front of her shanty before continuing on, and from that point on, night terrors consumed her. Sitting at the kitchen table, Camila tried to calm herself as the children slept. However, the clamor in the house was a stark contrast to her racing thoughts. It was nearly overwhelming. A hooded guy stepped out of the black automobile across the street at midnight, and she saw him start heading towards her house as she peered through the ripped curtain at her startled awakening. As Camila's heart raced uncontrollably, she finally caved. In her head, she whispered, "It could be a coincidence." As she felt a wrenching combination of fury and scared, she roused her and hurried to the nursery. She said in a low voice, "We have to go to the back of the house," and then she led them to a secret spot. Joaquín questioned his mother, "What's happening?" From the house where he stored various old tools and crates. His voice quivered in the dark, and his mother was told to remain silent. Despite her emotional turmoil, Camila gave a stern command. As they waited in the dark, the minutes felt like hours. No sound escaped Camila's attentive ears, awaiting the figure's decision to enter after what felt like an eternity outside once again. The sound of the engine was audible, and the vehicle sped off. A relieved sigh escaped Camila's lips. Nevertheless, she was conscious. As Camila escorted her children back to bed, she attempted to bring some normalcy to their night, but she realized that things were far from okay. The previous night had served more as a warning than a resolution to their difficulties. The visitor that night served as a sobering reminder that danger was lurking around every corner, maybe even more so than before. As soon as the sun came up on the horizon the morning following the incident that happened at night, Camila was unable to close her eyes. Dusty was already standing in the kitchen, brewing coffee, his thoughts consumed by unease and dread. The aroma of coffee roused Light and Joaquín, who joined her in the morning, sensing the lingering tension in the atmosphere. "Are you all right, Mom?" Noticing, Joaquín inquired. Camila poured the coffee while pretending to smile despite the severe dark circles beneath her eyes. She lied to shield the kids from her own anxieties the day before, but she was really just exhausted. She had sold a lot of stuff to pay for it. Breakfast was peaceful for them. Camila wanted to provide a decent meal for her children, but no one would hire her because she was just a regular woman, especially considering that she was low on funds and had to make do with what she had on hand when someone came knocking on the door just after coffee. Nervously, Camila stepped up to the door and, to her surprise, Diego was standing there. The police officer's expression was grave. "Camila, we need to talk," he remarked as he walked in. "Regarding the funds you discovered, nothing has changed." Camila felt a lump in her throat as she swallowed and felt Diego's serious expression as he followed her to the little kitchen table. "We then learned that the money is connected to a massive financial fraud network, which is even more concerning." "Who are you to say?" With dread, she inquired. "A guy kept an eye on the trash bin. A faraway camera caught the carpet as you were searching for it. Stepping off the carpet and immediately following your discovery of the object, which we were unable to discern in the tape. After that, we checked where the money was coming from and found that it was Sergio Ruiz, a name you might be familiar with. He is highly influential and extremely." Her thoughts were racing. The city's elite knew Sergio Ruiz, a wealthy philanthropist and notoriously unsavory character. Dissatisfied, rumors circulated that he was seeing La Mafia group. "What are you trying to accomplish by approaching me?" Camila had previously seen the man in the area, accompanied with a group of frightening males. "Do not collaborate with the authorities. You stand to lose a lot if this inquiry drags on," Camila said, her voice quivering slightly. Taking a deep look into her eyes, Diego explained. A commotion outside immediately piqued Camila's interest when Diego departed. Peeking out the window, she caught sight of a vehicle pulling into garage. A flashier, more expensive vehicle than the one that had been there earlier emerged. There was no time to go, so she opened the door shaking in terror as Sergio Ruiz personally arrived, flanked by two burly guys who appeared to be there to ensure the gangster's safety. "Sergio Ruiz here, Camila. We are all concerned about you," Sergio started, his voice as kind as honey. "I believe you have heard of me in this city. We were deeply moved by the candor with which you shared the news of your finding." His tone was one of irony. His disapproval was evident in his tone. Camila had turned in the money to the police because she was afraid they would find out about him. However, she knew she couldn't reveal anything to protect herself from their manipulation of her fear. "What are you trying to accomplish with me?" "Hi, Sergio, I want to make sure that nobody gets confused. It would be unfortunate if the community suffered because of your collaboration with the police," which Sergio kept to himself. "There are times when it's best to just leave things alone and act like we didn't find anything, right?" All eyes were on Sergio. For warning, Camila felt a shiver go down her spine. He was clearly not scared of the repercussions of his actions, as he was here to publicly threaten her. He still showed up at Camila's house right now, and all the neighbors would have known about it even if she had called the police. As soon as Sergio's automobile pulled up to his door, they must have noticed. It served as a constant reminder that he exhibited no fear toward the individuals who had denounced him or the authorities. "What you said will be considered." "I'm sorry," Camila said, her voice more forceful than she actually felt. And Sergio grinned. After the man departed, Camila sensed that the storm was far from over. "I'm going to solve this," she said, but the words sounded more like a question than a statement. As she closed the door, she knew the challenge she now faced was greater than anything she had ever imagined. It had been days since Sergio Ruiz's visit, and Camila felt the neighbors' increasingly heavy stares, the increasingly heavy murmurs, and the stifling atmosphere around her house made her feel as if she were living under a magnifying glass. Although Camila tried her utmost to keep Luz and Joaquín's routine as usual, she was overcome with fear of retaliation. While returning after a brief trip to the neighborhood market, Joaquín casually mentioned, "Mom, people are acting strange again." This idea crossed his mind constantly. Camila tightly grasped his hand and gently squeezed it. "We will be just fine. We must remain resilient." When Camila returned home one day, she found a note scrawled in red ink on the front door. The clumsily formed letters read, "Stop talking or pay the price." She reacted with a forced smile that didn't reach her eyes. The streets were unusually still as Camila searched for the message's possible author, but no one seemed to want her to drop the complaint, perhaps because she had made a mistake and the money belonged to her mom. Camila's heart was racing. "So, what's the deal?" Camila hurriedly led Luz inside, shutting the door behind her. "Nothing, dear. It's just someone trying to scare us," Luz said, her voice quivering with fear. Despite her outward composure, her heart was pounding like a drum. She stepped away from the door and, trembling, dialed Diego's number from the public phone near the house, eagerly anticipating his prompt response. "San Diego, by the way. My name is Camila." She whispered a confession. "Someone wrote a threat on my door. I'm really like this now." "I'm heading there right now," Diego responded confidently. "So please, don't leave the house and close all the doors and windows while I wait for you." Despite Camila's best efforts to occupy the kids in the living room with games, she seemed preoccupied with something else and reacted angrily to every sound. Diego would be at the door in just a few minutes, and her terror would only increase with each passing shadow. Relieved to see her face, Camila hurriedly raced to open it. "Let me see the message," Diego remarked as he passed her. She went to inspect the entrance, but her expression hardened as she beheld the menacing graffiti. "Camila, this is becoming quite urgent. I should probably file a report about this and maybe even request police surveillance in the area. That might assist." As Camila inquired, Diego reassured her emphatically that we will do all in our power. Regardless of following Diego's departure, her voice also exhibited an air of uneasiness. As she watched Luz and Joaquín play on the couch, Camila struggled with the conflicting emotions of wanting to keep up an act of normalcy and giving them the reality about the danger they were in. To safeguard her purity of heart upon opening the door to her residence on the wet morning of the subsequent day, Camila discovered a thick. As her heart raced, she noticed an unopened letter bearing merely Camila's name. The anonymous handwriting and lack of a return address indicated that the contents would be more than just disturbing as she surveyed her surroundings before returning the envelope to the house. "Mom, someone knocked on the door," Joaquín said, closely observing her. Standing in the living room, it was probably merely a mistaken delivery. The item wasn't wanted. Camila, who disliked deceiving her kid but knew she had to for his safety, probably lied to her son as she went to the kitchen in secret to open the envelope. Inside, she discovered a stack of tightly packed documents and images. As Camila turned the pages of the papers, her face paled in anticipation of what they revealed. A web of corruption involving not just Sergio Ruiz but other prominent persons. Camila whispered to herself as she felt the weight of the truth crush down on her, describing the situation as much worse than she had imagined. Records of payments, inflated contracts, and communications involving a series of illegal activities involving prominent city officials. Someone had left that information there to aid her with the complaint. Her fists clenched in a resolve to comprehend the predicament. The entire morning was devoted to Camila poring over the documents, taking in every detail and meaning. The links were beyond her wildest dreams, extending into the celestial regions. While Luz and Joaquín played on the patio in the afternoon, Camila sat in a chair thinking about what to do next. She was aware that revealing this information could lead to even worse consequences, but she also understood that staying silent could prolong the corruption that had an impact on many lives. As soon as the public phone outside her house started ringing, Camila sprinted over to answer it, her hands shaking with fear. In a warped voice, Camila Reyes inquired. Her cautious tone betrayed her identity when she responded, "Yes, it's me," from across the line. "Even though we're strangers, I know exactly what you got today. The gravity of the information I sent you must be clear to you. Be wary of anyone you trust," the voice cautioned, and prior to an abrupt end to the call prevented Camila from continuing her inquiry. Still clutching the phone, Camila felt the warning ringing in her head, telling her she needed help. However, ever since the voice had told her not to trust anyone, Camila found herself becoming increasingly alone as she battled the full force of the. There was a web of connections and corruption that appeared to be suffocating her mom as she returned home, and the paperwork were still strewn out before her, each line revealing depravity that was more intimate and closer than she had ever thought. "How about we play together?" Camila mustered up the courage to smile and respond to the innocent voice that had called out to her from the door. She then stood up, placed the documents in a locked drawer, and joined her children, all the while watching Luz and Joaquín playfully ignoring the gravity of their predicament. She clearly prioritized protecting those two, but how far could she push herself without endangering herself? Camila's inner turmoil intensified. She considered the consequences of either going to the police and risking everything or remaining silent and complicit, both of which were dangerous choices. The same amount as herself, she endured Mom Javier's residence is where I'll be playing. From the entrance, Joaquín yelled, interrupting Camila's train of thinking. "Excuse me, Jose, but I'm accompanying Camila." She began to speak, but he departed before she could complete her sentence. With her heart racing, Camila hurried to the door and yelled for Joaquín, but he was already out of sight. Worried about the potential repercussions of confronting Sergio Ruiz, she succumbed to anxiousness. Joaquín still hadn't returned after hours, and the sky had become a multicolored mess by that point. Purple and orange while Camila was out searching for Joaquín's pals in the neighborhood. Carrying the newborn in her arms, the worried mother started asking everyone if they had seen her son. Nobody seemed to know where he was. Her small eyes started to fill with fear as she inquired about losing dinner. Even though she was trying to keep her composure, Camila's voice betrayed her distress. She reassured herself and her daughter that Joaquín would return soon, but when night fell and he was nowhere to be found, Camila's panicked hands shook as she frantically dialed Diego's number. "San Diego, call me Camila. My son Joaquín has vanished without a trace. He had merely visited a friend's house before vanishing. I'm going to dispatch a patrol immediately." "It's been hours," he muttered, his voice hoarse with terror. "Camila, we will locate him," Diego declared angrily. The thought that Joaquín's disappearance could be linked to his choice to fight sent her heart racing, and Camila hung up the phone from the phone. She felt an unimaginable horror as she fought corruption, and she worried whether she had gone too far in her pursuit of justice. The night dragged on if the cost was going to be too much for her, and it felt like an eternity every minute that passed without hearing from Joaquín. As Camila made her way around the living room, she kept her eyes peeled for her son's return home. Delicate, sensing the strain, she occupied herself in quiet play, occasionally looking across at her mother with concern. Every so often, Camila would hear what sounded like a car horn. I walked up to her house and rang the doorbell. Nervously, she recognized Sergio Ruiz's car. Camila would transform into a serpent if he were with her son. Braced for assault, she believed that she would not let anyone hurt Joaquín. "Sergio, where is my son?" she inquired. "Your beloved boy." The moment he was near enough to hear her, he responded cynically, "You must be sick in the head." "I had come to propose an arrangement," he said. Without being scared by the powerful man standing before her, she said, "If you do anything to Joaquín, I will do something to her son," and she spoke to Sergio in a neutral tone. "That is why I am counting on you to work with me. In exchange, I will pay you well too." He turned his back on Camila and finished, saying, "To ensure his silence about everything I've discovered, he will have to hand over everything he knows to me so he will never hear my name again and his family will be safe." Camila knew he was lying, but she was still worried about her son and had until tomorrow to make a decision. If he doesn't, he'll face the consequences. Camila would never put Joaquín's life at danger. She was aware, though, that negotiating with Sergio would accomplish nothing. Fearing that something had happened, Camila hurried to the door as she heard the sound of police sirens. To her horror, there was Diego stepping out of a police cruiser. Anxieties and relief were visible in his grave countenance. "We found him," Diego announced with haste. "Okay." He and a friend were playing in a nearby park when he completely lost track of time as soon as Camila opened the door. "Camila," emitted A. As if the world had lifted off his shoulders, he let out a sigh of relief. "Much obliged, Diego. Your assistance is greatly appreciated." Diego said, "He's coming," pointing towards the interior of the automobile where Joaquín was exiting, clearly uncomfortable and uncertain. Camila was unable to locate Joaquín when she went to the house because he had become disoriented and had gone outdoors to play with a friend. It turned out to be only a misunderstanding, but Camila was still terrified that they would act against her son because of the threats. Without a doubt, Joaquín did not. Following a passionate embrace and numerous tears, Camila got ready to express her gratitude to Diego once more for protecting her from her mother and the dishonest city officials. But a solemn gesture from him cut her off. "It is essential that we have a conversation." Camila informed Diego about Sergio's visit and the bargain he proposed, but the officer remained unconvinced. "The purchase of Sergio's silence, rather than security, is all that a deal with him provides, as you and I both know," Diego said. After everything Camila had seen and heard, she could not accept no. Doing so would be the same as being a collaborator, and she feared for her children's life. Camila pondered this moral problem with all her soul. I imagine that Diego nodded, showing his admiration for her decision. Do you have any thoughts? I will be vigilant in monitoring Joaquín and will ensure that the police are informed so that they may remain safe. Camila experienced a peculiar blend of calm and apprehension following Diego's departure. She was relieved that Joaquín was safe, but simultaneously, she stuffed herself with anxiety as she got the kids ready for bed, pretending like nothing was wrong but really felt trapped by her fears. Camila sought relief from her dread by going to the front of the house, but her terror intensified as she noticed the door slightly ajar. Camila quavered as she recalled locking it on her way to the room. On the weathered table on her porch, she found an envelope containing multiple images of herself and her children, beside a message scrawled in red. Grasping the photograph, she came to the realization that her choice to fight had merely made the perilous game she was playing worse. Reclining was out of the question, even though she was now aware that every advance would be increasingly riskier. As the situation deteriorated, Sergio received a call on the pay phone from Diego's police colleague. The desperation in his voice was palpable, and the task was only just beginning the following day. Camila, will you please come? Right now to the hospital, could you please tell me what occurred? The answer made Camila's voice quiver with terror. Diego was discovered in a terrible condition in the park this morning. He is intubated and unable to speak, but he requested that I inform you of anything quickly. I am overwhelmed, Marco remarked, his voice heavy with emotion. It didn't take Camila a second for her heart to sink. Camila hurried to get to the hospital after making arrangements for someone to watch the kids. As she proceeded to the intensive care unit, ICU, where Diego was being treated, the hospital's white, sterile corridor seemed to go on forever. The hospital admitted him. Camila was met with the sight of Diego, who lay still on his hospital bed, encircled by a plethora of tubes and equipment that intermittently made noise when she entered the room. She was overcome with emotion as she beheld her ally and friend, Marco's police colleague, in that condition. Diego put a reassuring hand on his shoulder as he was ambushed from behind, unable to protect himself. It was as though they were aware of precisely when he would be alone. The barely suppressed rage in Marco's voice was explained by him. Why would they subject him to this? Camila felt a range of emotions. She inquired, they intend to frighten you, Camila, even though she knew the answer in her heart. Marco looked Camila in the eyes and said, they want you to stop. The truth of those words struck Camila like a blow. The assault on Diego was a message and a warning to Marco. As she embraced Diego's icy hand while sitting on his bed, every second Camila spent by her wounded friend made her think about what to do next. They beg her to quit, but she can't help but keep going. I won't be able to go home that night, she whispered to herself, despite the protest. As Camila opened the entrance to her house, a sense of desolation overcame her. She knew that continuing to fight could result in even more severe consequences, but the alternative, silence, now seemed inconceivable. The decision was heavy on her mind. It was obvious that her struggle had cost a lot, and that cost might keep rising. Please, Almighty, keep me safe. My only intention was to get my money back and put things right. She prayed to Camila, who was terrified. Nearly her last breath, she slammed the door shut. Yes, she did see an oddity. An envelope resting idly on the entry mat, with her name written on it in a hideous way. Camila cautiously reached into the envelope and removed a single sheet of paper bearing a message in boldface. Her final cautionary tale with shaky palms, Camila clutched the document. As she made decisions and took steps, the gravity of her situation became more apparent. Over the course of weeks, the shadow of peril grew, encircling her beloved ones and everything in their path. After the last warning, an air of tangible stress appeared to engulf Camila's house like a dense fog. Inside her home, life became a series of meticulously planned rituals to guarantee the protection of everyone. As time went on, she fortified home security by adding wood to the door jambs and blocks on the windows. While Camila was once again sorting through the paperwork she had received on a gloomy afternoon, an unexpected call came in. Marco's partner broke the news that would temporarily stop his heart in his tracks. adding to the anxious monotony that had taken hold. Camila, it's unbelievable because of everything that has transpired. We are taking every precaution, but Camila felt a mix of relief and fear when Diego woke up and started talking. He wants to testify and tell everything he knows about the Ruiz family and the corruption in the city. Diego is being shielded from harm. Marco, in the days leading up to his testimony, said that the police and he were working together to arrange the hearing in such a way that nothing would be revealed until the very last minute. Fear and the optimism that they would soon be able to reveal the truth were at odds with one another for Camila. Persistent in their pursuit of vengeance, Camila and I visited Diego in the safe haven where he was being held. We found him to be miraculously recovered, but he was clearly affected by the events that nearly took his life. With conviction, Diego told Camila, "He ordered to attack me and is threatening her with other people. This is bigger than me, bigger than us." This statement bolstered Camila's decisions. Stopping this in its tracks requires our immediate return home on the night before the testimony is scheduled. Camila made a dinner for her kids with what little was in the cupboards, concealing the tension that was throbbing inside her. Joaquín fell asleep for a little period of tranquility, gazing at the starry sky, while she seemed to be at ease after giving birth. Seeking tranquility in the hours leading up to the impending storm, I was nearly asleep when the phone rang, breaking the stillness of the night with its urgent message. "Camila, it's me, Diego. Someone is trying to get in where they hid me," Camila said, her voice trembling with fear. "Things are making noises. It appears that they are aware of my whereabouts. If I seek refuge in a secure location, they will likely follow suit." Fear gripped Camila as she held on, "Diego, because I'm about to dial Marco's number, and they'll send reinforcements our way." Putting down the receiver, calling Marco to apprise him of the situation, Camila felt her conscience hammer down on her with each heartbeat. She knew that the next several hours would be pivotal. An overwhelming sense of urgency merged with an unwavering resolve that she would not succumb to terror. This battle had come to a close. No matter the cost, she would always be by Diego's side while he faced the truth. Insufferably anxious moments ensued in the hours following Diego's call. Camila, while waiting for news, she could hardly sit still and kept running around the house. At long last, the clouds parted, and the day of the trial that would alter her life forever arrived as she made her way to the courthouse. All eyes were on Camila. Some betrayed compassion, some scorn, and a few gleamed with malevolence. Marco reassured Camila that Diego was certain the police had arrived quickly enough to prevent the worst-case scenario, and with that sigh of comfort, Camila was ready to step inside the courtroom. Most important, both of them exchanged looks of strength and complicity before taking their seats in the courtroom. Diego appeared pale and weak, but his resolve was obvious. As the trial commenced, the prosecutor presented evidence of a system of corruption and detailed its components. They boldly called witnesses and described the ways in which Sergio Ruiz and his accomplices manipulated contacts and bribed officials. A pivotal figure was Diego. He testified as a witness to corruption while simultaneously acting in rebellion. As Camila studied every face in, seeking to gauge their reactions, the court Camila took confident steps forward as she stood up to testify, while Sergio Ruiz stood calmly by his side, his posture impeccable, and his gaze hard and frigid. The attorneys hushed their conversations, diligently taking notes on Diego's every word. During a break while Camila was back at her house, a man she knew as Sergio disclosed not just his misdeeds, but also her own weakness. Despite the anxiety she felt with every word, Camila nervously accepted a paper from one of Sergio's closest allies, unfolded it beneath the table, and read the words scrawled in hurried calligraphy. "This will not end here. Be careful." As Camila felt a chill run down her spine, she peered around to discover upon the return of the trial, Camila felt the weight of every word spoken during the exchange. She made every effort to distract herself from the threat, but no one else seemed to notice. A portion of her was distracted by the processes, the questions posed by the attorneys, and the responses given by the witnesses. Everyone in the court was on edge, whispering under their breath, as she patiently awaited the next attack. At last, she revealed the note that had been bestowed upon her. Anxietism pervaded everything. With her voice resonating through the court's attentive silence, Camila said that this case goes beyond corruption and touches on questions of justice and compassion. We become accomplices when we remain silent, so I have decided not to do that. Elect to stand up against the mafia on behalf of everyone who cannot speak for themselves, not just me. After her evidence came to a close, the only sound was that of the judge calling the next witness. After the court had adjourned for the day, Camila stood up, exhausted but resolute. Outside the court, a mob had gathered, with Sergio Ruiz's supporters at the front, their expressions betraying their contempt and fury. There was obvious and horrifying hatred in their eyes as they stood there waving placards and yelling menacing phrases, as if they had been threatened to be there. Uncontrollably, Camila's heart began to beat. Marco gently rested his hand on her shoulder and whispered, "Look around. We are not alone in this." As a human shield, she watched as several of the courtgoers who had been moved by her testimony joined her. They faced the cries and looks as a group and made their way to the exit. Returning to their home after their confrontation in court, Camila felt relieved to see Light and Joaquín playing quietly on the living room floor. Their innocent laughter stood in stark contrast to the gravity Camila felt after the testimony. She tried to find solace in the mundane tasks of being a mother, but her mind remained restless. She pondered whether I had crossed a line. As she stared at her children, she asked herself, if my pursuit of justice only endangers them more? The thought that her deeds could lead to permanent effects on Joaquín and Luz was nearly too much to bear. Camila later kissed their foreheads as she laid them on the bed, attempting to portray a tranquility that she herself did not experience. "My darlings, good night. Everything will be all right," she whispered. Once she had ensured that they were sound asleep, more as a vow to herself than a guarantee to them. Although the light was low, Camila sat at the table and let herself feel a pang of despair as she watched the conflict unfold. Never-ending, and for an instant, the idea of giving up was on her mind. At that moment, Camila hurried over to answer the public phone, terrified that it may be someone sent by Sergio, breaking the stillness of the night like a tentative alarm signal. Alyssa Reyes with a voice modulator distorting La Voz del Other Side to the point where it was nearly incomprehensible, Camila said, "Who is speaking?" while her voice quivered. "Though I am unable to reveal my identity, I am aware of the solutions you require. One more piece of evidence is in my possession. In a way that will put the odds on your side and ensure that Sergio Ruiz and his accomplices do not succeed this time." My heart was racing, Camila thought. How can I have faith in you? How can I tell that you don't have a trap on your hands? You may trust that you are secure with me because I am the one who provided you with the earlier documents that proved certain things about Sergio, even though the voice claimed otherwise. Get the truth. I'll be in the city park by myself tomorrow morning at sunrise. Find her at the phone call. The abrupt ending was just as sudden as the start. Leaving Camila bewildered and with the receiver in her grasp, she faced a potentially life-threatening situation. This could be her final opportunity to secure the information she needed to guarantee justice. All night long, Camila slept with her mind racing over her choice. Feeling empowered by the knowledge that her every action was contributing to a bigger good, she made her decision as soon as the sun dipped below the horizon. Knowing this could be the return, she prepared for the encounter with increased purpose. Last in her never-ending struggle for fairness, in the morning Camila made her way to the city park, the location of the upcoming pivotal encounter. The park was still shrouded in morning fog, adding an air of mystery and unease to every tree and bench. She watched the area around the lake closely, keeping an eye out for any unusual activity. Eventually, she saw a lone figure dressed in a long fur coat. Very carefully, Camila approached with a mix of anticipation and trepidation, as if this very moment held the key to her struggle. A woman with gloomy resolve marked her eyes as the apparition lowered her hood. Camila Reyes said to the woman, "It's me. You said you had something special in store for me." Camila replied while attempting to keep her cool. The woman presented Camila with a quite thick, "I worked as Sergio Ruiz's assistant before he left, and there are recordings of him admitting to bribery and manipulation. This is becoming intolerable for me. I'm hoping this helps, because I finally saw what he had done." Camila clutched the envelope with a quiver in her fingers. "What he did to your companions is unacceptable, and I refuse to take part in it any longer." After explaining that she had hoped being at her side would provide her with security, the woman abruptly left, leaving Camila to fend for herself with the recordings. The next step was to play the tapes for the judge and jury. Despite Sergio's best efforts, the evidence was incontestable. Sergio was compelled to make a surprising confession about his motives throughout the trial. To me, it seemed like he had complete command. At the conclusion of the trial, Sergio admitted his guilt and apologized to everyone. The judge then spoke to Camila face-to-face before handing down the punishment. He had been blinded by power to justice and morality. A web of profound corruption was exposed by Mrs. Reyes's courage and resolve. Since prevented further harm to this community, it is only just that she get compensation for her bravery and the hardships she endured. Accordingly, the judge directed that a substantial amount of the seized assets be given to her. As restitution and acknowledgement for Camila's pivotal participation in the case, Sergio Ruiz was going to give her this monetary prize. Not only did Camila secure a promising educational future for Luz and Joaquín, but she also bought a new house, which represents a fresh start for the family. Even weeks after the fact, Camila's tale continued to serve as a model of bravery and honesty. She had grown into a powerful advocate for social change in her town, motivating others to do the same. Potential dangers. You have transformed our town, mother. As Joaquín spoke under the twinkling stars from the terrace of his new home, Camila leaned in to stroke her son's hair and grinned. They changed my love, he said, adding, and all of us who choose to speak will continue to always change for the better. The relief that came from knowing the struggle had been worthwhile was priceless. The anguish and the realization that, after the trial that rocked her city to its very core, peace was the ultimate reward. On the terrace of her new house, Camila basked in the sun as she watched her children play, a sign of the new life they had created. Joaquín, who was older but still very much a young man, helped tend to the garden's plants as a bright teenager studied in the shade of a leafy tree. Their lives had been completely changed by the education that Camila had obtained with the money incentive. Light possessed an exceptional aptitude for the sciences and aspired to be an engineer, but Joaquín had grown deeply attached to literature and frequently found himself engrossed in the worlds conjured up by words. Lastly, Camila had. She got a job, and now her kids aren't staying at home with her because they have to, but because they choose to. Along with them, the neighborhood had transformed. Justice and cooperation thrived where corruption and fear had previously prevailed. Camila was instrumental in this. Rise beyond her role as Sergio Ruiz's adversary and become an uplifting role model who collaborated with the community to keep Sergio Ruiz and his accomplices from reliving their dark history. They spent their days behind bars following their conviction. The recordings that their former assistant had brought were the deciding factor in their crooked network. They had destroyed their illegal operations and served as a warning to anybody who dared to follow in their footsteps. When Diego finally got well from his injuries, he took over as chief of police for his town and ushered in a new age of openness and reform. Their shared experiences of hardship and triumph allowed them to remain close friends, and he and Camila were no exception. San Diego. Meeting at Camila's residence on a regular basis brought up memories of their shared journey and the ties they created. While Camila was at one of the sites, she made tea and thought about how her story, her fight, had become a local documentary on a peaceful afternoon. Utilized in educational settings to teach the value of honesty and bravery, it's peculiar to consider that our past is scrutinized. All I did was return the money and report what I found. No one else had any say in the matter. Camila, I must stress the significance. Answering the question, Diego said that it serves as a constant reminder that standing up for what is right is always worth the struggle and that being truthful is essential in any situation. Laughter and an infectious enthusiasm were always present in Diego's company. Sitting in the garden as the sun dipped below the trees, they had a long, meaningful chat that spanned both their shared history and their hopes for the future. You have changed our city, Camila. You changed our lives, he exclaimed. Camila grinned as Diego raised his glass in toast. Camila felt a sense of true peace, not only from having won the battle, but also from knowing that her children had joined them. We have all changed, and we will always change for the better. As night fell on the city, which had once shook under the weight of corruption, now shone with the promise of justice and renewal, The courage to stand up and speak out in the face of overwhelming adversity would motivate others to do the same on their part, and it was in that honesty that Camila discovered the serenity and direction that would shape her life going forward. Please consider subscribing to our channel and giving this story a like if you found it interesting. Thanks to you, we are able to keep bringing you new and intriguing stories on an almost annual basis. Please take a moment to click on the links that are currently flashing on your screen. We would be truly grateful if you would not miss the next incredible story that is going to be shown to you. Crafted specifically for you, packed with insightful anecdotes and assuredly entertaining. We hope to see you there.